ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that a new and unsettling development may soon explode at the center of the mystery surrounding Jordan's pregnancy, and, surprisingly, the name that could ignite the next wave of chaos is Brick. For a long time, Brick has existed on the edge of the story, a quiet observer who appears only when strategy, secrets, or danger begin to circulate through Port Charles. Yet recent hints suggest that his role may be far more personal than anyone expected. The question of who the father of Jordan's unborn child truly is has already begun to fracture the fragile emotional balance surrounding Curtis, but if Brick suddenly becomes part of that equation, the consequences could be explosive. What once seemed like a straightforward assumption that Curtis might be the father may actually be hiding a far more complicated truth, one capable of turning Curtis's entire world upside down. The possibility that Brick could be connected to Jordan's pregnancy feels almost surreal at first, but that is exactly what makes the revelation so dangerous. Their interactions in the past were subtle, layered with quiet chemistry and moments that never fully crossed the line in public view. Yet Port Charles is a place where the smallest hidden moment can grow into a devastating truth months later. If Brick and Jordan ever shared something deeper than casual flirtation, the consequences of that secret could now be coming to light at the worst possible time. The mere suspicion alone could send shockwaves through the lives of everyone involved. For Curtis, this would not simply be another romantic complication. It would represent the terrifying possibility that he has been living inside a narrative shaped by other people's secrets. Curtis has already been struggling with the emotional fallout of learning that Portia is pregnant, a revelation that forced him to reconsider his future almost overnight. The idea that Jordan could also be expecting a child connected to him was already enough to shake his sense of control. But if the truth begins to point toward Brick instead, the emotional landscape becomes even more complicated. Curtis may find himself trapped in a psychological spiral, wondering whether he has been misled from the beginning, whether assumptions about fatherhood were allowed to grow because someone was too afraid to reveal the real story. That kind of uncertainty can become an obsession, and Curtis may soon discover that the real battle is not about paternity alone, but about the fragile trust that once connected all of them. Brick's potential involvement also introduces a darker tone to the situation. Unlike Curtis, Brick operates in a world defined by calculation and controlled secrecy. If he is the father, the question becomes whether he even wants that truth exposed. A man who spends much of his life navigating intelligence, surveillance, and quiet influence may not react to personal revelations in predictable ways. His silence could be strategic. His distance could be deliberate. And if Jordan has been protecting him by allowing the assumption about Curtis to linger, then the emotional stakes grow even higher. Curtis would not only be confronting the shock of a hidden father, but also the realization that the truth may have been carefully buried for reasons that go far beyond embarrassment or fear. This is where the storyline takes on a haunting psychological dimension. Curtis could begin to feel as if the ground beneath his life is constantly shifting, as though every answer only leads to another unsettling question. The more he tries to understand what is happening, the more he may sense that the truth has been orbiting him without ever fully revealing itself. That feeling can become deeply unsettling, creating a new obsession that refuses to fade. Instead of finding clarity, Curtis may start seeing patterns everywhere, conversations that now feel suspicious, silences that suddenly carry hidden meaning, memories that refuse to align with what he believed was real. If Brick truly holds the key to the paternity mystery, then the revelation could become one of the most shocking turns the story has delivered in months. It would not simply rewrite the identity of Jordan's child's father. It would also force Curtis to confront a painful reality about the people closest to him. Trust, loyalty, and emotional history could all collapse under the weight of a truth that was hiding in plain sight. The most devastating part is that Curtis may already sense something is wrong. The uncertainty itself is becoming an emotional prison, trapping him between suspicion and hope, between anger and disbelief. As the tension builds, the question is no longer just who the father is. The real question is what Curtis will become once the truth finally surfaces. Will he accept it and try to rebuild the shattered pieces of his life? Or will the betrayal, real or perceived, transform him into someone harder, colder, and far less willing to trust again? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is certain. If Brick is truly connected to Jordan's child, the shock will not simply disrupt Curtis's future. It will haunt him, turning the search for truth into a relentless obsession that could change the course of his life forever. Brick has begun to move more carefully than ever before, as if every decision he makes now carries a weight far greater than anything he has faced in the past. What once seemed like a supporting role on the edges of other people's conflicts is quietly transforming into something far more strategic. A new calculation is forming in his mind, one that forces him to step into a position of responsibility he may never have intended to claim. The situation surrounding Jordan has changed the balance completely. Jordan is no longer simply navigating personal struggles or emotional turmoil. Now the danger surrounding him has taken on a darker and more deliberate form, largely because of the growing pressure created by Sidwell and Cullum. Their influence is spreading in ways that feel both calculated and merciless, and the threats they pose are no longer subtle. For Brick, ignoring that reality is no longer an option. The moment he recognized the scope of that danger, something inside him shifted. Brick has always been observant, someone who watches carefully before acting, someone who understands that survival in complicated situations requires patience. But protecting Jordan is different from any quiet observation. It demands action, and more importantly, it demands foresight. Brick understands that Sidwell and Cullum rarely make direct moves without first setting traps in the shadows. They manipulate circumstances, twist loyalties, and create pressure points that slowly tighten until their targets have nowhere left to run. Jordan is now dangerously close to becoming one of those targets. That realization forces Brick into a new mindset. Instead of simply reacting to threats as they appear, he begins thinking several steps ahead. His strategy is not loud or obvious. It is built on anticipation, on understanding the patterns that people like Sidwell rely upon. Brick starts to examine every possibility, every place Jordan could be vulnerable, every person who might unknowingly contribute to the trap forming around him. Protecting Jordan is no longer just about standing beside him physically. It becomes a deeper effort to shield him from the invisible pressures closing in from multiple directions. Sidwell's role in all of this cannot be ignored. There is something chilling about the way Sidwell operates, a calculated calm that makes his intentions difficult to read but impossible to dismiss. Brick senses that Sidwell is orchestrating something larger than anyone currently realizes. The danger does not arrive in dramatic explosions or obvious confrontations. Instead, it builds slowly, layer by layer, until the moment arrives when the damage can no longer be undone. Cullum, meanwhile, adds another unpredictable element to the situation. Where Sidwell represents cold strategy, Cullum carries the threat of reckless escalation. Together they form a dangerous balance, one mind calculating the game and the other capable of pushing it into chaos without warning. Jordan stands uncomfortably close to the center of that storm. Whether he fully realizes it or not, he has become entangled in forces that extend far beyond his control. Brick can see that clearly. The problem is that Jordan does not always recognize how deep the danger runs. His instincts may push him to confront problems head-on, to challenge threats directly, but Brick understands that approach could lead him straight into the trap Sidwell is preparing. The safest path now requires caution, patience, and the ability to move quietly without drawing attention. That is why Brick's role begins to expand in ways no one expected. He becomes more than just an ally. He becomes a quiet guardian, someone who monitors the shifting landscape around Jordan while trying to stay one step ahead of the people hunting him. Every decision Brick makes carries risk. If he moves too aggressively, he could expose both himself and Jordan. If he waits too long, the window to protect Jordan could close completely. The new plan forming in Brick's mind reflects that delicate balance. It is not built on confrontation, but on disruption. Instead of directly opposing Sidwell and Cullum, Brick begins considering how their strategies might be weakened before they even reach Jordan. Sometimes the best defense is not blocking an attack, but preventing it from forming in the first place. Brick understands this instinctively, which is why he starts observing patterns who Sidwell speaks to, where Cullum directs his attention, what kind of pressure they are applying behind the scenes. As these pieces slowly fall into place, the scale of the situation becomes more alarming. Brick realizes that Jordan may be only one piece in a much larger operation. Sidwell rarely invests time and resources without expecting a significant return. Whatever he is planning likely reaches beyond Jordan alone. That possibility makes Brick's task even more urgent. If Jordan is only the first target, protecting him may require exposing a broader scheme that has not yet revealed itself. The deeper Brick looks into the situation, the more unsettling his conclusions become. Sidwell's methods suggest long-term preparation. The traps are not random, they are carefully positioned. Cullum's involvement also hints that intimidation or violence could be used if subtle pressure fails. For Brick, the message is clear. Jordan cannot simply confront these threats and hope they disappear. Someone must stay ahead of them, predicting their next move before it happens. That responsibility begins to reshape Brick's identity within the unfolding story. Where he once seemed like a background presence, he now becomes a central figure in the effort to keep Jordan safe. His choices carry consequences not only for Jordan, but for everyone connected to the situation. The pressure grows heavier with each passing moment, yet Brick accepts it without complaint. There is a quiet determination in the way he approaches the problem, as if protecting Jordan has become something personal rather than merely strategic. The most shocking aspect of this development is how naturally Brick steps into this expanded role. He does not announce his intentions or seek recognition. Instead, he works in the background, adjusting his actions carefully to avoid drawing attention from Sidwell or Cullum. But beneath that quiet exterior lies a growing awareness that the situation may soon reach a breaking point. If Sidwell and Cullum continue pushing forward with their plans, the conflict surrounding Jordan will inevitably intensify. And when that moment arrives, Brick may no longer be able to remain in the shadows. His careful calculations could eventually place him directly in the path of the danger he has been trying to prevent. For now, however, Brick continues building his strategy piece by piece. Every observation, every quiet decision adds another layer to the protective barrier he is trying to construct around Jordan. The tension surrounding him grows heavier, yet his resolve remains steady. And perhaps that is the most surprising twist in this unfolding story. What began as a quiet act of concern for Jordan is gradually evolving into something much larger. Brick is no longer simply reacting to events. He is shaping them. His decisions now influence how the conflict between Jordan, Sidwell, and Cullum will unfold. The man who once stood on the sidelines is slowly becoming a key player in a much more dangerous game. Whether that transformation will protect Jordan or place them both in greater danger remains uncertain. But one thing is already clear. Brick's story is no longer a minor thread in the background. It is becoming one of the most significant forces driving the tension forward, and the shock of that realization is only beginning to settle in. A shocking new twist may be forming around the mystery of Jordan's pregnancy, and unexpectedly, Brick could be at the center of it. For a long time, the assumption has been that Curtis might be the father of Jordan's unborn child, especially given their complicated past. However, recent hints suggest that another possibility is quietly emerging, one that could completely change how the story unfolds. If Brick is somehow connected to Jordan's pregnancy, the revelation would not only alter the identity of the child's father, but also create a powerful emotional storm that Curtis may not be prepared to face. The idea may sound surprising, but Brick and Jordan have shared moments in the past that hinted at a deeper connection. What once seemed like harmless flirtation could now take on a far more serious meaning. In a town like Port Charles, even the smallest hidden moment can grow into a life-changing secret. If Jordan and Brick ever crossed a line that no one else knew about, the truth could now be waiting to explode at the worst possible time. That possibility alone is enough to shake the fragile balance surrounding Curtis. Curtis is already struggling to process the fact that Portia is pregnant, a revelation that has forced him to rethink his future. The idea that Jordan might also be expecting a child connected to him was already overwhelming. But if the truth begins to suggest that Brick could be the real father, the emotional impact could become even more unsettling. Curtis may begin to question everything he thought he understood about the situation. Instead of clarity, he could find himself trapped in a spiral of doubt, wondering how long the truth has been hidden and why no one told him sooner. What makes this development even more intense is the psychological pressure it could place on Curtis. The uncertainty surrounding the child's father may slowly turn into an obsession. Every conversation with Jordan, every interaction with Brick, and every memory from the past could suddenly feel suspicious. Curtis may start to sense that something is wrong long before the full truth is revealed, creating a quiet tension that grows stronger with every passing moment. If Brick truly holds the key to the mystery, the revelation would send shockwaves through all their lives. Curtis would not only have to accept the truth about the child's father, but also confront the painful realization that secrets have once again shaped his future without his knowledge. In the end, the real shock may not be about paternity alone. It may be about trust, betrayal, and the haunting feeling that Curtis has been standing at the center of a story he never fully understood.